The forest was quiet, too quiet for a place that should have been alive with the sound of birds and insects. Shadows stretched long between the twisted trees, and the ground was wet from last night's rain. Somewhere in that silence, a weak sound broke through, soft, shaky breathing mixed with pain. The alien princess lay hidden between rocks and tall grass. Her skin was pale, almost glowing in the faint light, and strange marks that looked like faint silver veins ran across her arms. Her dress was torn, covered in dirt and blood. She had been running for days, but now her strength was almost gone. Her ankle was twisted, her side was bleeding, and her throat was dry as dust. Every time she tried to rise, her body betrayed her. She collapsed back onto the cold earth, her long hair tangled with leaves. The once proud princess of a shining world was now nothing more than a wounded girl, lost and alone on a strange planet. Her heart raced whenever she heard the crunch of branches in the distance. She knew hunters might be following her, men who wanted her for her name, her power, or maybe just the bounty placed on her head. She had escaped them once, but for how long could she survive like this? The forest seemed endless. She pressed her hand against her wound and tried not to cry out. "Help!" The words slipped from her lips in a whisper, almost too faint to hear. But there was no one here. No one except trees, stones, and the cold night air, or so she thought. Far away, a human man moved carefully through the same forest. His boots sank into wet soil, his eyes sharp, his ears open for danger. He was not a soldier, not a hunter, not a hero. He was just a man trying to survive in the wild land that most people avoided. But fate was strange. It often pulled the unlikeliest souls together. He heard something. A sound so soft he almost thought it was the wind. But no, it was different. A broken breath, like someone fighting against pain. He paused, holding his breath. The sound came again from the rocks nearby. Curiosity pulled him forward, though every step warned him it could be a trap. In this forest, sometimes people pretended to be weak, only to strike when help arrived. Still, he moved closer, slow and silent, until he saw her. The sight froze him in place. A girl, but not human. Her skin shimmered faintly under the moonlight, and her hair looked too bright, too strange to belong to any woman of Earth. Her eyes, half closed, opened for a moment. They glowed faintly, like stars drowning in tears. He whispered under his breath, "What are you?" The alien princess flinched at the sound of his voice. She tried to push herself back, her weak arms trembling as she pressed against the rock. Fear filled her eyes, the kind that came from knowing everyone who found her wanted to hurt her. "Stay away," she managed to say, though her voice cracked with weakness. The man raised both hands slowly, showing he had no weapon in them. His voice was low, calm. "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't believe him. Why would she? Humans were the reason she was running, the reason she was wounded. Yet there was something in his tone, not greed, not hunger for power, but something else. Something she had almost forgotten. Kindness. The man looked at her bleeding side. His instincts told him to leave her, to walk away before trouble caught him. But something stronger pulled at him, the sight of her pain, the desperation in her eyes. "You'll die if you stay here," he said. The princess tried to lift her chin proudly, but she had no strength left. Better than to be captured. Her words shook, her lips pale. He frowned. "Captured by who?" She closed her eyes, refusing to answer. Silence filled the space between them. The wind whistled through the branches, carrying the heavy smell of damp earth and danger. The man took a slow step closer, then stopped. She tensed, but she couldn't move anymore. Her body was too weak. For a moment their eyes locked. Human and alien, stranger and stranger. He could have turned away. He could have left her to her fate. But in that moment, something inside him shifted. He had seen desperation before, seen people starve, suffer, and give up. But this was different. This girl wasn't just fighting for her life. She was fighting against the universe itself. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady but quiet. "If you want to die, I'll leave you. But if you want to live, let me help you." The princess stared at him, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. She wanted to say no. She wanted to push him away, as she had pushed everyone away since her escape. But her body betrayed her. A tear slipped down her cheek. Her hand trembled as she slowly lowered it from the wound. It wasn't trust, not yet. It was something else. Hope. The man knelt down beside her, careful not to scare her, and began tearing a piece of cloth from his shirt. He pressed it gently against her wound. She winced, but she did not stop him. For the first time in many long, painful days, someone was not trying to hunt her. Someone was trying to save her. The forest around them remained dark and silent, but in that silence, something new had begun. Two lives, once strangers, now connected by fate. Neither of them knew what dangers still waited in the shadows, but one thing was certain. This was only the beginning. The fire crackled low in the small cave. Its light painted the walls with dancing shadows. The man sat near the entrance, listening to the night. His hand rested on the hilt of his knife, though his mind was far away. Behind him, wrapped in a rough blanket, the alien princess lay still, her breathing shallow but steadier than before. He could not stop staring at her. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her silver-like veins glowed faintly in the firelight, and even her broken, dirt-covered form carried a strange beauty. He knew she was not from Earth, but what he could not understand was why she was here, and why she was alone. Helping her had been an instinct, almost automatic. But now that she was under his care, his thoughts turned heavy. What had he done? If she was truly an alien princess, then someone was looking for her. And if those someones found him with her, they would kill him without hesitation. He was no soldier, no fighter, no leader. He was just a man who wanted to live quietly, away from the madness of wars and politics. Yet here he was, tied to a stranger who could bring doom upon him. He rubbed his face with his hands and sighed. I should leave her, he thought. She's not my problem. But when he glanced back, his resolve broke. She stirred in her sleep, a soft groan escaping her lips as pain returned. He noticed how her thin fingers clutched the blanket, how her body trembled though the fire was warm. She was fragile, like a bird with broken wings. Something in him refused to abandon her. The princess opened her eyes slowly, glowing faintly in the dim light. She studied the man's face, the sharp lines of his jaw, the tired look in his eyes, and the scar running across his cheek. She had seen many humans before, most cruel, some greedy, a few ruthless. But this one was different. His eyes did not carry hunger or hate. They carried weight, yes, but a different kind, the weight of decisions and losses. Why? Are you helping me? Her voice was weak, but her question clear. The man hesitated. He did not know the answer himself. Because you'd be dead by now if I didn't, he said finally. She turned her gaze away. You shouldn't have. Saving me will only bring you danger. Her words cut deep because he knew they were true. He had lived long enough to sense trouble when it came, and this girl was nothing but trouble. Yet leaving her had felt impossible. Danger finds me anyway, he muttered. At least this way, I get to choose why. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the fire's hiss. The princess closed her eyes again, though she wasn't sleeping. She was testing him, measuring his heart. Could she trust him? Or would he, like the others, betray her once the reward was tempting enough? The man stood and walked to the cave's entrance. The night sky stretched wide above, full of stars. Somewhere among them, he thought, was her world, a world she had lost. He imagined what it must feel like to be cut off from everything you knew. Hunted on a planet not your own, for the first time, he realized her fear was greater than his. When he returned inside, he found her awake, her eyes fixed on him. You're not like them, she whispered. Who? He asked. The ones who hunt me, she replied. They see me as a prize. You? Don't, he gave a short laugh, bitter and tired. I've got nothing to gain from you. Just a harder life. Her lips curved slightly, almost a smile. That's why I trust you more than them. The word trust startled him. It was heavy, dangerous. Trust meant responsibility, and responsibility was something he had spent years avoiding. Yet here it was, being handed to him by a dying alien girl. He wanted to push it away, but the truth was he didn't hate it. Hours passed. He checked her wound again, tightened the cloth around her side, and gave her sips of water from his canteen. Every act made his dilemma sharper. Should he risk everything to protect her, or should he leave before it was too late? As dawn began to break, painting the forest in pale light, the man knew the answer had already formed in his heart. He could lie to himself, pretend he still had a choice, but he didn't. He had made it the moment he knelt beside her in the forest. The princess watched him with tired eyes. She saw the conflict written across his face, the storm behind his silence. You think too much, she said softly. He raised a brow. And you talk too much for someone half dead. For the first time, a small laugh escaped her, weak but real. It surprised them both. The tension in the cave lightened, if only for a moment. But outside, the world was shifting. Far beyond the forest, signals carried across the sky. Hunters were closing in, And soon his dilemma would no longer be about helping her or not. It would be about how far he was willing to go to keep her alive. The cave grew colder as night returned. The little fire flickered weakly, struggling against the damp air. The man sat with his back against the stone wall, his knife resting close to his hand. He did not sleep. His eyes stayed on the alien princess, who lay curled in the blanket he had given her. For hours she had been silent, drifting in and out of uneasy dreams. But now her glowing eyes were open, fixed on the cave ceiling as if she was staring at ghosts only she could see. The man noticed her trembling, not from cold but from something deeper. "You're awake," he said quietly. She turned her head toward him. "Yes, you should rest," her lips pressed together. "I can't. Not with the memories chasing me." He frowned. Memories. That was not something he expected. He thought she would stay quiet, never sharing who she was. Instead, she seemed ready to speak, though her voice was fragile. The silence stretched until she finally whispered, "You deserve to know who I am, and why danger follows me." The man shifted, unsure if he wanted to hear, but curiosity held him still. "Then tell me." She closed her eyes, drawing a shaky breath. "I am the daughter of a queen. My people live on a world far beyond your skies. It was once a peaceful place full of light and harmony, but peace never lasts. Enemies rose against us, enemies with no honor, only hunger for power. They struck our palace without warning." Her voice broke for a moment. The firelight caught the tears that slipped down her cheeks. "They killed many, servants, guards, even children. My mother, the queen, ordered me to flee. She believed I was hope for our people, a symbol they could rally behind. But what kind of hope am I now?" She looked down at her blood-stained hands. "I ran, I hid, and I lost everyone. I am a princess with no kingdom." The man felt a weight in his chest. He had expected a story of betrayal, of war, maybe even lies. But what he heard was something else. Loss. The kind he understood too well. "And you ended up here," he said slowly. She nodded. "The invaders hunt me across the stars. They hired men, both human and alien, to track me down. There's a price on my head higher than gold. Anyone who finds me can become rich beyond measure." Her eyes met his, sharp despite her weakness. "That is why I cannot trust humans. Too many would sell me the moment they saw me. Too many already tried." The man's jaw tightened. He wanted to deny it, to say not all humans were like that. But he knew the truth. He had seen greed in human eyes. He had seen betrayal for less than a handful of coins. Still, something inside him stirred. "You're alive," he said firmly. "That's what matters." The princess shook her head. "Alive, yes, but broken, and soon they will find me again." The fire hissed, throwing sparks. Outside, the forest howled with distant cries of night creatures. The man leaned closer, his voice low. "Then let them come. You're not alone anymore." Her eyes widened slightly. "Why? Why risk yourself for me? You owe me nothing." He thought for a long moment, then answered honestly, "Because once, I lost someone too, and no one came to help. I know what it feels like to scream into the dark and hear nothing back. I can't let that happen to you." For the first time, her hard expression softened. A warmth spread through her chest, strange but comforting. "You speak like a soldier." "I was," he admitted, staring into the fire. "Long ago, but I left that life. Too much blood, too many graves. I wanted peace. Yet peace found you with me," she said with a bitter smile. He chuckled softly, something like that. For a moment, the cave was quiet except for the fire's crackle. Then the princess whispered, "If I die, promise me you won't let them take my body. Burn it, scatter the ashes. Do not let them use me as a trophy." The man stared at her, shocked by her calm tone. "Don't talk like that." "It is the truth," she insisted. "I've seen what they do. I won't let it happen to me." "Swear it." He clenched his fists, then finally nodded. "I swear, but I don't plan on letting you die." Her eyes closed, relief washing over her face. A faint smile touched her lips as exhaustion pulled her back into sleep. The man sat there, guarding her through the night, but his thoughts were heavy. Her story explained everything: the hunters, the fear, the bounty. And it left him with a question that would not leave his mind. What chance does a single man have against enemies who hunt across worlds? He looked at the princess again, fragile yet strong, broken yet still breathing. Somehow, deep inside, he already knew the answer. He would fight, because she was no longer just a stranger. She was his responsibility. The morning was gray and heavy. Mist clung to the forest like a living thing, wrapping every tree in a pale shroud. The man stepped outside the cave, scanning the ground for fresh tracks. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. The silence was no longer natural. It was the kind of silence that came before danger. He crouched low, touching the damp earth. A line of boot prints trailed across the soil, sharp and fresh. Someone had passed near the cave maybe only hours ago. His hand tightened around his knife. They weren't alone anymore. Inside the cave, the alien princess stirred awake. Her side still hurt, but the color in her face had returned. When she saw him standing so still at the cave mouth, her heart skipped. She could read his body language easily, alert, tense, like a predator sensing another predator. "What is it?" she asked quietly. He turned to her, his expression hard. "They're close. Too close." Her blood ran cold. She knew who they meant. The hunters had found her trail again. She sat up, ignoring the sting of her wound. "We need to move." He nodded, already grabbing what little supplies they had. There was no time to waste. He slung his pack over his shoulder and helped her to her feet. She tried to walk on her own, but her ankle buckled. Without a word, he lifted her into his arms. She was light, far lighter than he expected, as if her body carried more spirit than flesh. The forest swallowed them as they left the cave behind. Mist curled around their path, hiding their shapes but also hiding their enemies. Every snapped twig made his pulse race. Every rustle of leaves felt like footsteps too close. Then it came, the sound he dreaded. Voices. Rough, low, speaking in a language he half recognized. Not soldiers, mercenaries. He crouched behind a fallen log, setting her down gently. Through the mist he saw them. 3 men, armored in scraps of steel and leather, weapons slung across their backs. Their eyes scanned the ground with the focus of wolves on a scent. The princess's hands clenched. She recognized the crest painted on their shoulders. These were not just hunters, they were servants of the ones who destroyed her home. Her chest tightened with fear. The man looked at her, pressing a finger to his lips. "Stay silent." The mercenaries moved closer, muttering curses as they checked the ground. One of them knelt, brushing a hand over the damp earth. "Blood," he growled. "She's near." The man's grip tightened on his knife. They couldn't stay hidden forever. Sooner or later the hunters would smell them out. He leaned close to the princess. "When I move, you run. Head east, keep low. Don't stop until I catch up." Her eyes widened in alarm. "You'll be killed." "Not if I kill them first." His voice was calm, steady, but his pulse hammered. Before she could argue, he was already moving. He burst from the cover of the log with a sudden roar, charging straight at the nearest mercenary. His blade flashed, cutting across the man's arm before he could raise his weapon. The other 2 shouted in surprise. One drew a gun, firing wildly into the mist. Bullets tore through branches, splinters raining down. The man dove behind a tree, rolling across the wet earth. He hurled his knife, striking the gunman's hand. The weapon clattered to the ground. The princess, her body weak but her spirit burning, pushed herself forward. She could not run far, but she could not leave him to fight alone. Her glowing eyes locked on the mercenary closest to her. She raised her trembling hand and, with a desperate whisper in her alien tongue, released a faint burst of energy. The hunter screamed as a searing light struck his chest, sending him sprawling into the mud. The man turned in shock, seeing her standing there, fragile yet fierce. For a moment he forgot the danger. Her power, even in her weakened state, was breathtaking. But there was no time to marvel. The last mercenary roared and lunged with a blade of his own. The man caught the swing with his forearm, pain burning his steel-scraped skin. He countered with a brutal strike to the hunter's throat, dropping him to his knees. Silence fell. Only the mist remained, curling around the lifeless forms of their enemies. The man breathed hard, wiping blood from his arm. He turned to the princess, who swayed where she stood. The burst of energy had drained what little strength she had left. He rushed to her side, catching her before she collapsed. "You shouldn't have done that," he said, though his voice was more concern than anger. "I couldn't let you fight alone," she whispered. Her head rested against his shoulder, her body trembling. He held her tightly, scanning the mist for more enemies. If 3 had found them, others would soon follow. "They know we're here now," he muttered. She closed her eyes. "They won't stop." "Not until I'm dead." The man clenched his jaw. He had chosen to help her, but now the danger was real, blood deep and close. This wasn't just a choice anymore. It was war. He lifted her in his arms again, turning east. The forest stretched wide and merciless before them, but he walked with purpose. Whatever came next, he would not abandon her. Not now. Not ever. The forest finally grew quiet again, though the silence was uneasy. The man carried the princess through the mist, her fragile body resting against his chest. She was conscious, but only barely. Every so often her glowing eyes opened, searching his face as if she was trying to understand why he had not left her behind. After what felt like hours, he found a hollow tree large enough to serve as a hiding place. He set her down carefully and knelt beside her. His arm throbbed from the cut he had taken, but his focus remained on her wound. Blood had soaked through the cloth he had tied before, and her breaths came shallow. "You're losing too much," he muttered, tearing another strip from his shirt. She reached weakly for his hand, stopping him. Why do you keep helping me?" Her voice was thin, but her eyes were sharp, demanding an answer. The man paused, staring at her. He could have lied. He could have told her he had no choice, or that he only wanted the reward of saving a royal. But his heart pushed the truth past his lips. "Because I can't watch you die," he said simply. Her hand trembled as it dropped back into her lap. For a long moment she said nothing. Then softly, almost too soft to hear, "You're not like the others." He gave a tired half smile. "I've heard that before, usually right before someone stabs me in the back." But she did not laugh. Her eyes glistened with something else, something fragile. Trust. He worked quickly, cleaning her wound as best he could with the little water he had left. She winced at his touch but did not pull away. Instead, she watched him closely, as if memorizing the way his rough hands moved gently for her sake. When he finished, he leaned back against the hollow tree, exhausted. She studied him in silence before whispering, "You were a soldier once. I can see it in your eyes." He didn't deny it. "I was, fought wars that didn't matter, buried too many good people. That's why I live out here now. No orders, no battles, no masters." Her gaze softened. "And yet, here you are, fighting again." He gave a small shrug. "Maybe I needed a reason, and you gave me one." Her lips parted in surprise, but no words came. Instead, she looked away, blinking hard. No one had spoken to her like that since she fled her world. Everyone she met only saw her value in gold or power. But this man, this human, saw her as a person. Hours passed as they rested in the hollow. The man kept watch, knife in hand, while the princess tried to sleep. But sleep would not come. Her mind circled with questions, doubts, and a strange warmth in her chest. Finally, she spoke again. "If we are caught, they will kill you too." He glanced down at her, his expression calm but steady. "Then I'll make sure they go through me first." Her breath caught. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was a fool, but the words stuck in her throat. No one had ever promised such a thing to her. Even her guards back home had sworn loyalty out of duty, not choice. But this man, his loyalty came from something deeper. Her chest ached with a feeling she couldn't name. As the night deepened, the forest filled with the distant calls of animals. The princess, still weak, leaned closer to him. "You're kind, humans. You are strange. Some destroy, some betray. But you—" Her voice faltered. "You confuse me." He looked at her, his scarred face half in shadow. "That makes two of us." For the first time since her escape, she smiled. A small, broken smile, but real. "Perhaps I can trust you," he gave a nod. "Trust is earned. I'll prove it." Her smile faded into seriousness. "Then I'll give you something in return." "A secret," his brow furrowed. "What kind of secret?" She hesitated, then reached into the folds of her torn dress. From a hidden pocket, she pulled out a small crystal shard, faintly glowing with silver light. She held it out with trembling hands. "This is the last piece of my home. The invaders want it as much as they want me. If they have it, they can control what's left of my people. If you want proof of my trust, take it. Guard it, even from me if I ever lose myself." The man stared at the shard, stunned by its beauty and the weight of her words. Slowly, he closed her hand around it instead of taking it. "No," he said firmly. "It belongs to you. I'll protect you." That's enough. Her throat tightened. No one had ever refused such power before. No one but him. She blinked back tears and whispered, "Then maybe. You are the only one left I can believe in." The man didn't answer. He only adjusted the blanket around her shoulders, keeping his knife ready as the forest breathed around them. But inside, something unspoken passed between them, a bond not built on blood or duty but on choice. It was fragile, yes, but in that fragile bond was strength, and from that night onward the princess no longer felt completely alone. The first light of dawn crept through the trees, thin and weak. The forest was still damp with mist, and the air carried a strange heaviness, as if the earth itself knew danger was near. The man stood at the hollow tree's opening, eyes scanning the distance. He hadn't slept all night. He couldn't afford to. The alien princess stirred behind him, her glowing eyes slowly opening. Her body still ached, but she felt a little stronger than the night before. She pushed herself up, leaning against the rough bark. "You didn't rest," she said softly. He shook his head. "Couldn't. They'll send more men. 3 hunters won't be the last." She lowered her gaze. She knew he was right. The invaders would not stop until she was caught or dead, and now, because of his choice, the man stood in the same danger. "What will we do?" she asked. He turned back to her, his expression hard but calm. "We move. We can't stay here. I know a place, old ruins deep in the cliffs. If we can reach it, we'll have cover, maybe even supplies." She frowned. "How far?" 2 days, maybe 3, he replied. "If we move carefully." Her chest tightened. "I can't walk that far." "You don't need to," he said, adjusting his pack. "I'll carry you when I have to. We'll take it one step at a time." For a moment, she simply stared at him. The thought of someone risking so much for her was still difficult to believe. But there was no time for questions. The forest had already betrayed them once. It would again. The man helped her stand, steadying her when her ankle faltered. They moved slowly, weaving through the dense undergrowth. He kept his knife ready, his ears tuned to every sound. Birds cried in the distance, but sometimes their calls fell silent too quickly, a warning he never ignored. Hours passed. The forest grew darker as clouds rolled over the sky. The ground was slick, roots twisting like traps. The princess leaned against him, each step a battle against her pain. Yet she refused to beg for rest. She would not slow him more than she already had. At midday, they reached a shallow stream. The man crouched, letting her drink first. She cupped the cool water in her hands, the taste fresh against her dry throat. He watched her closely, noting the way her silver veins pulsed faintly when she regained strength. "You're healing faster than before," he observed. "My kind, we recover differently," she admitted. "But I need energy. Food, without it, I'll grow weak again." He nodded. "Then I'll find us something." Leaving her by the stream hidden in tall grass, he set out to hunt. He moved quietly, his footsteps blending with the earth. After some time, he returned with small game, enough to roast over a fire later. But his eyes were sharp and his jaw tight. "What is it?" she asked, sensing his unease. "They're close," he said. "I saw signs. Broken branches, ash from a camp. At least 5 men this time." Her heart dropped. "Then we must hurry." The man helped her back onto her feet, and they pressed on. The forest grew steeper as they neared the cliffs. Rocks jutted from the earth, forcing them to climb carefully. Each step drained the princess, but the man's arm never left her side. By evening, rain began to fall, cold and relentless. The ground turned slick, the path more dangerous. They found shelter beneath an overhanging rock, starting a small fire to dry themselves. The princess sat close to the flames, her silver veins glowing faintly in the light. She looked at him, her voice soft. "Why do you fight so hard to save me? You don't even know my name." He glanced at her, surprised. "Then tell me." She hesitated, then whispered, "My name is Alira." He repeated it under his breath. "Alira." The name rolled heavy and strange, yet beautiful. "I'm Kale." Their eyes met across the fire. For a moment, the storm outside seemed to fade. It was just them. 2 strangers bound by danger, yet something deeper now tied them together. But the peace did not last. A sharp whistle cut through the rain. Kale's body tensed instantly. Alira froze, her hand clutching the blanket around her. The sound came again, closer this time. "They found us," Kale hissed. He kicked dirt over the fire, plunging them into darkness. Through the rain, faint lantern lights appeared, bobbing between the trees. Voices followed, rough and eager. The hunters were sweeping the cliffs. Kale grabbed Alira's hand. "We run, now." She nodded, fear tightening her chest, but her grip was firm. Together they stumbled through the storm, climbing higher toward the cliffs. Lightning flashed, showing the jagged path ahead. Behind them, shouts rose. The hunters had seen them. Arrows whistled through the rain, striking trees with sharp thuds. Kale pulled Elira close, shielding her with his body as they pushed onward. The path narrowed into a rocky ledge. Below, the forest stretched in endless shadow. One wrong step would mean death, but there was no choice. Kale guided her carefully, his arm around her waist. She leaned against him, her breath ragged, yet her eyes fierce. "Don't let go," she whispered. "Never," he answered. Voice steady together, they vanished into the storm, leaving the hunters' shouts echoing behind them. The escape had begun, but the chase was far from over. The storm raged through the night. Lightning split the sky, thunder rolled across the cliffs, and rain poured in endless sheets. Kyle and Elira pressed forward, their bodies soaked, their steps heavy with exhaustion. Behind them, faint shouts still echoed, though the storm masked most sounds. By dawn, the rain had eased, leaving the cliffs slick and shining. Kale led Elira into a hidden cavern carved deep into the rock. The walls glimmered faintly with minerals, catching the weak light that filtered through cracks above. For the first time in days, they were safe, at least for a while. Elira collapsed against the wall, her chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. Kale knelt beside her, scanning her wound. It had begun to heal, silver veins weaving faint patterns over the scar. Even so, she looked fragile, as if the storm had drained her spirit. "You'll recover," Kale said quietly, though his voice carried doubt. Her glowing eyes lifted to him. "Safe, for now, but they won't stop, Kyle, they never stop." He didn't argue. He knew she was right. The bounty hunters, the invaders, they would keep coming until they had her, dead or alive. Hours passed in silence. They shared the last of their food, Kale giving her the larger portion without a word. Elira noticed, her heart tightening. No one had ever placed her needs above their own, not even her guards back home. When night came again, the cavern glowed with a faint silver light from her shard, the crystal she had shown him before. She held it in her palm, staring at its soft glow. "This shard, it holds more than memory," she whispered. "It is a key. If I return it to my people, they may rise again. If I fail, all hope dies with me." Kale leaned against the cavern wall, watching her closely. "Then you already know what you have to do." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "And what if I don't want to go back?" The words startled him. "What do you mean?" She turned toward him, her face pale but her voice steady. "I've seen what power does to people. I've seen betrayal, greed, death, and yet, here with you, I felt something I thought was lost." Kale's chest tightened. "Elira, you saved me," she said, her voice trembling. "Not because of duty, not because of reward. You chose to, and that choice means more to me than any throne." Silence filled the cavern, heavy and unbroken. Kale looked at her, seeing not a princess, not a symbol of power, but simply a girl. Alone, afraid yet stronger than she knew. He lowered his gaze. "If you go back, you'll have to fight. If you stay, you'll always be hunted. Either way, it won't be easy." She reached for his hand, her touch soft but firm. "Then let me ask you, if I chose to stay, would you stand with me?" Kale froze. The question cut deeper than any blade. He thought of the life he had built in solitude, far from war. He thought of the peace he had carved for himself. But he also thought of her, her broken smile, her fierce eyes, the way she had trusted him when she had every reason not to. Finally, he met her gaze. "I would." Her breath caught, and for the first time tears spilled freely down her cheeks. She pressed his hand between hers, her voice breaking. "Then maybe my place is not with a crown, but with you." The cavern seemed to breathe with them, the silence holding their decision like a secret. But outside, danger still stirred. By morning, the hunters had reached the cliffs. Their shouts carried faintly into the cave. Kale tightened his grip on his knife, standing at the entrance. Elira rose slowly, her shard glowing brighter as if answering her choice. "They'll come again," Kyle said. "Then let them," she replied. Her voice was no longer filled with fear but with quiet strength. "I am not running anymore. Not alone." Side by side, they faced the storm together. The hunters would return, the battles would continue, and the universe would not stop testing them. But in that cavern, on that cliff, a new bond had been forged, stronger than fear, stronger than fate. The poor, wounded princess who had once been lost was no longer alone, and the man who once sought only peace had found something greater. Not war. Not duty, but a reason to fight.